Ocean is not the responsibility of few, it's the duty of all. Until each and every citizen of this country feels the urge and the need to address pollution, it will be difficult to achieve the larger objectives that we have. And for this, there is a need to disrupt the existing paradigm and make pollution a household word. But how do we do that? Coming up next, we discuss this in our Pollution Roundtable. Please welcome to the roundtable the Vice President of Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiative, Mr. Devjit Mitra, the Head of Asia Agriculture, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Dr. Purvi Mehta, the Senior Advisor Nutrition at Tata Trusts, Dr. Rajan Sarkar, and Advisor Niti Aayog, Dr. Alok Kumar. And could I also request to moderate this session the Assistant Director, Harvard T. H. Chan School of Public Health, Ananya Avasthi.
As we all know, nutrition as a program area has been around in our policy discourse for some time now. But the thematic focus for this current roundtable is disrupting the paradigm. Before we jump right into that, what do we even mean by disrupting the paradigm? A simple applied answer would be when the usual way of thinking or doing something is replaced by a new way. So how about we start the discussion with the first simple yet fundamental question posed to Mr. Alok Kumar. How is Poshan Abhiyan any different from our past policy efforts in nutrition? And can you identify 2 or 3 major disruptors that you think seem to be working well?
So thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege to be here. So in what way is Poshan Abhiyan different from other programs? There are 4 basic differences to my mind. Number 1 is the first and foremost is clear focus on outcomes. So 2 percentage per point per annum reduction in stunting, 2 percentage per point reduction in wasting, underweight, anemia. So everything is clearly defined. Point number 1. Point number 2, for the first time, we try to bring nutrition and food as separate things. So nutrition not equal to food. I think that is the second major important thing. So we are trying to bring all the players together, health, WCD, water sanitation, Panchayati Raj rural development, education, agriculture. So that combined effort is the convergence of all programs, and this Poshan mission actually being an overarching umbrella under which we are trying to bring all together, because unless we simultaneously act on all these things, we will get suboptimal results. That is the second major change which I have seen. The third, I would say, is the issue around how do you get community involvement around this. So the whole question of how do you build a Jan Andolan. So nutrition, at least in malnutrition, is almost in your face. But if you ask people in the villages, if you ask people in the cities, they would not say that that's a problem. So first, so what are you fighting? You're fighting something which people don't even consider a problem. So how do you bring people into the debate, people into managing their own affairs, understanding the problems, and a large part of the behavioral change component, the demand side, which was largely left. So we were very good, government is very good at supply side intervention. So you create the best technical interventions, but who is to consume that those interventions are not really worked on. So this is a major improvement in this. And the fourth point I would say is really the use of technology in a sense of very, very clear focus and trying to get data on a real-time basis so that you can act in a preventive manner rather than as a reactive manner. So these 4. And lastly, the 5th point, which I think also is worth stressing upon, is to really focus on, so there are 1,000 things that can be done, but given the capacities of our frontline workforce to deliver, you have to really prioritize. And their prioritization has been done in terms of what are those interventions which are required in the first 1,000 days, and really going after them on both dimensions, on ensuring that those, so I mean, I was just seeing Purnima has just supplied me a slide which says that if you look at all those interventions, only 5 to 10% of the families are getting all those interventions that they should be getting in that case. Because you may be doing some things well, for instance, on immunization, as Rajesh said, we had a lot of progress on immunization. But if you see deworming, if you see IFA tablet consumption, so if you look at the entire package of interventions, we are not able to reach every family. The second dimension is, even if we are able to reach, what is the quality of the service? So we have this aspirational district program, and where we are looking at measuring these and asking the households what exactly is going on in these districts. And we found that a full 32% of the women who were surveyed, who said they had received ANC services, said that neither their weights were taken, nor their blood samples were taken, nor their urine samples were taken, nor their blood pressure was measured. So I don't know what ANC did we do with them. So the good thing about this program is really to focus on covering a larger number of people, trying to target the systematically excluded households, and lastly, to make sure, and that is less apparent now, but I think it requires much more greater effort, that the services that we are giving is delivered with the quality that they're supposed to be delivered. So these are the 5 things which I thought were critical elements, and this would make a difference between the success and failure of this mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us that overview and talking about delivery of services on the ground and the quality of services delivered. Have you seen any movement towards reviving the Anganwadi centers? And how do you see any changes coming about in the ICDS ecosystem, which will continue to be the point of delivery for most of these services?
Yeah, thank you. I think more than one speaker very clearly said that Anganwadi centers are the center where everything has to happen, and I think it was very well said about that the concept around Anganwadis is, and the services that are there are very robust, and they're scientifically very evidence-based, and even it was referred to, as Sean mentioned, that even before the world coined all these terms of first 1,000 days or window of opportunity, the interventions that are part of Anganwadi services is bang on. We have not added a single one to what was conceived and put there in 1975. This next point is between ICDS and the NHM together. They have all the necessary inputs to make the health, nutrition of women and children so much better. Third, the reach of Anganwadi is unmatched. Nothing else can reach that. We have 1.38 million Anganwadi centers. So basically, but then why is the situation so bad? There have been a lot that has been written, but to just summarize, it's just 2 things. One is probably it's a big implementation failure, and the second one is the targeting. I mean, you're not reaching those who need to be reached. And the third probably is the community ownership or the seeking behavior of the community. So, Poshan Abhiyan, like what Mr. Alok Kumar elegantly said, probably addresses all these issues. And I think there's so much stress on improving the capacity of the workers, improving Anganwadi center services, monitoring how they are delivered, and at the same time working on the demand side and creating through Jan Andolan, making people seek the services. I think it's very well conceived. And to your question, I've been traveling around and seeing, I've never seen so much of momentum around nutrition, and Anganwadi centers are the real center of action. And so there's a lot of hope and things are changing.
Right. So can I shoot the next question to Mr. Mitra, talking about implementation and monitoring. Can you tell us a bit more about your work on social auditing and community-led initiatives for promoting accountability of Anganwadi centers?
Thank you, Ananya. In fact, just to highlight, APPI works largely in the state of Orissa as far as nutrition work is concerned. And as you said, putting the community at center. In fact, already the social movement has started with Poshan Abhiyan, and especially Jan Andolan is basically kicking off that strategy. And we are putting the community at the center at the moment. But at the same time, I would say that the whole social audit program is a prototype. And when the country is asking for how we can reach out to people, this is also providing some answer that how tools like social audit can reach to a larger audience and how nutrition becomes a public discourse. So I think the narrative is on that. And this started not at a very pilot stage. This started across 240 gram panchayats across 6 districts in the most remote districts of Orissa. So their reaching out to a community and building their knowledge base was a huge challenge. So the spread work is basically through social audit, reaching out to the people. And it was not social audit alone. It was the participatory learning which actually enhances the knowledge base of people, especially the tribal households. And here we are talking about a language for a discourse which is not for the audience like us. It is an audience which has to be a palatable language. So actually the need has come that we change our language when it comes to nutrition. And language which is often delivered at a household level rather than in other discourses. So this is building a prototype across 240 gram panchayats in 6 districts of Orissa and social audit as a tool, and which is already mandated, and Niti Ayog's document clearly specifies that social audit has to be done for ICDS and sir, if I'm correct on this. Social audit is also mandated under National Food Security Act. So this is talking about how. So this how is this initiative is going to be a learning tool for the country as well.
Right. So, Dr. Purvi Mehta, I think while we keep discussing all the interventions downstream, can you take us to, a more upstream issue about India being a predominantly agricultural country? What are the linkages between agriculture and nutrition in light of diet diversification?
Thank you, Ananya. I think, we've been hearing this since the morning that, India hosts some of the world's largest number of undernutrient people. But let us also match it with another fact, which is among the malnutrient Indians, the largest number also happen to be in rural areas and dependent on agriculture. So the largest number of malnutrient Indians are also the farmers of India, right? And so there is a huge linkage there. But of course, there are multiple factors that impact nutrition, and we've been talking about that. So it's not just the source of food, but it is sanitation, the health, people's genetic makeup and absorption capacity, a lot of things. But food, of course, plays a central role, and therefore agriculture has a huge linkage. And this is even more in a country like ours. As you said, 48% of our population depends on agriculture. That's why it is very important. But also the huge dependence on locally grown and locally sourced food in this country is one of the highest in the world, and therefore agriculture nutrition linkages are going to be extremely important. Any of these reforms or the disruptive reforms and transformation, Dr. Rajesh Kumar, you also spoke about, whether it was the Green Revolution, whether it was the White Revolution, the PDS systems of India and so forth, have been predominantly based on two agriculture commodities, rice and wheat. And we have really missed out on the whole diversification, because I think food security was an extremely important part, but we have to move on to the nutrition security, and there's where agriculture can play a very, very critical role.
So, Mr. Kumar, you were talking about convergence at the policy level. How closely does the nutrition mission, how easy or difficult it is to be working with, say, the ministries of agriculture for, linking things up to, say, minimum support prices for pulses vis-a-vis millets, vis-a-vis rice and wheat. How easy or difficult is that convergence in real life?
So government is a strange creature, though it's an amorphous one, but if you look at the way we work, the way we are organized into ministries, and that is inherent in that organization, that each organization has its own agenda. Now, getting everybody together for a common agenda and a common outcome is a difficult task, because there are multiple priorities. And I mean, if you look at India, there are hundreds of thousands of priorities that you could think of which India needs to do. And today, but to my mind, I think the good thing which I have seen in this Poshan Abhiyan, and the fact that Niti Aayog, in a sense, is convening that, as a convener, we are trying to get multiple ministries and multiple actors, and not only in government, but what I find even more encouraging is that we have seen philanthropies, we have seen civil society people, we have seen state governments, we have seen district administrations. So we see never before I have seen this kind of an energy about this mission, and that gives me a lot of hope and confidence that maybe what has eliminated, it's not that we have not made progress. As Rajesh was saying, we have declined by about 0.9 percentage points per annum in terms of our stunting rate over the last 10 years. NFH, as I say, NFHS 5 is now on the fields. We will be getting some of those results by late this year. So we'll see where all this effort has led to. But what I've seen is almost a, what should I say, a flurry of action. So if you look at the health ministry, I see home-based newborn care program has been intensified. Mission Indradhanush has been intensified, that vaccination program. The rotavirus and PCV have been introduced. Anemia Bharat program, which was in the making for a long time, has been introduced. A home-based young child care program, so to target the 6 to 24-month child, which is the time when we see the slide at the maximum, has been introduced. So simultaneously, Swachh Bharat has made a lot of difference, and it is continuing. And now with the Har Ghar Jal program, we'll see a lot of prevention part in terms of what infections which lead to malnourishment. Then on the agriculture ministry side, we see a biofortification program, a return to the millets program. So what I see is that multiple ministries, the food ministry has come up with a pilot project for rice fortification to address the micronutrient deficiency, because the biofortification part will be a little bit, in a medium run perspective. So, the FSSAI has come and defined standards for fortification of wheat flour, for rice, for oil, for milk. So I see a lot of action on all fronts. The state governments, when I go and meet across with chief ministers, chief secretaries, all of them seem to be asking this question as to why, despite having all the conditions, why we are not able to move as quickly as we would like. It's not that we are not moving, we are moving, but the pace needs to be accelerated. And I think from the Niti Aayog perspective, we see nutrition, probably undernutrition in particularly, as the single biggest challenge which is facing India.
Right. You said that the government is a strange creature, and I think things are not very different in the social sector as well, right? We see a lot of foundations, NGOs, and CSR activities operating in a very fragmented manner with such reputed organizations as the Tata Trust. Do you see in the social sector, organizations like the Tata Trust can act as conveners to help coordinate all this multi-sectoral action that seems to be happening?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's naturally happening as it is today. I'm just out of a meeting where Tata Trust, Asim Premji Philanthropy Initiative, and several other philanthropies got together to look at how do we form a coalition for nutrition. And in India, as well as at global level, it is happening. Now, there are many, what they like to call as, collectives where people pool in you have common implementation framework, monitoring framework. You just get together, plan together, go and implement on your own, come back and take stock together. That kind of implementation frameworks and collectives are happening. It's not only with big philanthropies or people with a lot of resources, but this opens a thing for civil society as a whole, and big philanthropies are investing heavily in improving the implementation capabilities, monitoring capabilities of civil society organizations and community-based organizations. So it's a lot that is happening on that space.
Right. Dr. Mehta, can you just share one or two examples of some evidence-based interventions, that the Gates Foundation has implemented, particularly in food insecure environments?
Thank you. I think there are a lot of evidences on how diversification in farming system has implications on the food system. Yeah, because people, as I said earlier, what people are growing and what people are eating is very, very connected, right? And so I think there are two types of initiatives that is generally needed, and we are investing into as well. But there are many organizations, and especially the government of India, as Alok Kumarji you just said, is paying a lot of attention to, and this is from two types of angles, right? Number one is the staple crop. About 60% of this country's diet, Sanjeev ji, comes from two crops, rice and wheat, right? And this is across any quantile, right? But the challenge comes in terms of the diversification or the non-cereal diets, which is also not just calories but nutritious diets, and how do you add it? So there are two ways of doing that. There are multiple ways, but two major ways. Number one is within the cereals, within the rice and wheat system, you could do, as you said, Alokji, the pre-harvest and post-harvest fortification. That could be one. For example, in this country, there are 137 varieties of rice which is ready to be commercialized, right? And we have commercialized only about 8 to 9 varieties in the country, because we have only commercialized the varieties which were high yielding. We hardly saw nutrition as an important trait, and therefore just looking at those varieties, screening those varieties and looking at the nutrition trait, Kala Namak variety of UP, for example, has an extremely high nutrition content. But we have never commercialized it because Kala Namak was never part of those 6-7 varieties that we have always commercialized. So looking at not just the production and productivity, but also from a nutrition angle. And the second would be in bringing in an additional crop. For example, there are very easily available technologies, which is late sowing and early harvest varieties. You can take one full crop in between the two and increase the nutrition. So there are a large number of these areas where interventions, and sometimes very simple interventions, can lead to really, to use your word, disruptive reforms.
Thank you. Coming back to Jan Andolan, and this could be a closing question considering the timelines. You worked with a lot of Samakhya Sathis in Odisha, which were essentially community volunteers.
Right.
So can you tell us what was the working experience, in such districts, and how can they be some sort of, change agents?
In fact, these are very interesting community-led actors who played a major role in terms of not only, I would say, not place it as, it is truly in the form of a Jan Andolan. So, in fact, I'll just go back that what exactly it meant. In fact, one is one of the key learnings that has come from this particular social audit model is that we could define the role of PRIs. So that's an interesting learning which is coming very, in fact, that is what it gives back to the country, that how PRIs can be involved in the discourse of nutrition. And Samikhya Sathis playing that lead role in terms of feeding the PRIs. So Samikhya Sathis are now a community level actor who not only understands the space of nutrition or understands nutrition, but also connects the gaps from a family to a grievance redressal mechanism. So somewhere that connect which Mr. Alok Kumar was mentioning in terms of from a systems knowledge to a community knowledge, and especially that bridging that discourse, and also to basically take the lead from the front is something which has been led by the Samakhya Sathis. So this social audit process has engaged them with the family level, has also engaged them at the facility level, has also engaged them at the panchayat level. So Palli Sabhas and Gram Sabhas on nutrition are well facilitated when these kind of community actors come into play. And basically, in the morning session, we heard a lot of data. But if the data is not speaking to its users, so data loses its significance. So this is where the Samakhya Sathis are playing that role in terms of changing that narration of data into actions. And that is where you can see some quick results happening and the needle is moving, is that the Anganwadi centers, now 85% of the Anganwadi centers in these 240 Gram Panchayats are opening on time and closing on time, which is not a small piece of data for us. You can see that more than 80% of the Anganwadi centers have a functional weighing machine. When it translates to that level of actions, then it starts speaking volumes. So these are the actors, leading actors, who are able to understand that what problem lies at the facility level, what problem lies at the household level, and how they can do the grievance redressal by taking it to the right forum. So these are the connects which has made Samakhya Sathis as a lead actor there.
Can I just close with a short question to Mr. Kumar? Considering Niti is so central to coordinating all our efforts around Jan Andolan, for everybody present in the room, what would be the three actionable points or strategies or recommendations that you may have as next steps for Jan Andolan? And what could be the role?
So I think there are, number one is to try and involve the panchayat representatives. So that is one key initiative. The second one is, we have seen, and Basanta is sitting here, a lot of success in terms of involving the SHG groups. Because they are the people who can be influencer, and large parts of our research shows that the word of mouth communication is the best in terms of when we are looking for behavior change. And the third element then is to look at the frontline workforce and their supportive supervisors. Because even though they have been in charge of this program for a very long period of time, their vision about what they need to do is very narrow, and these were, the old departmental guidelines, what they were thinking, and they're thinking. So getting them to think a little bit big. So in terms, so we are now looking at in designing job aids, because we cannot translate those complex guidelines into action on ground. So how we can simplify their jobs through whatever aids that it would be possible. So I think for this coming Poshan Ma, these were the three main issues. And I'll just also like to add that among the various priorities that we have, the programs, we're really targeting 4 things this time. Point number 1, can we eliminate all diarrheal deaths? Because this is doable. It's easy. We know the solutions. It is doable. The second is around complementary feeding, because that is the place where we are lacking the most. Can we initiate the complementary feeding in times and make sure that between 6 and 24 months that is taken care of? The third item is looking really at anemia in a big way, and can we give a significant push to the Anemia Mukt Bharat, which is now already launched. And lastly, it is about the home-based newborn care program that is now intensified, and it is around the whole IYCF practices. Are we able to get this message to every household, to every child, newborn child who deserves that care? Are we able to reach that care to that child? These are the 4 key themes for at least this year.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists for the wide and experiential learnings. Thank you.
Thank you so much.